This is the Post-Purchase Podcast, episode 71. Sean, thanks for reminding me. Sean, we are talking with somebody today that is after my own heart. This is a very unique podcast interview guest that we have today because what we're going to be talking about is something that can make you a ton of money, but almost every Amazon seller that I know is completely ignoring this. What do you say, Sean?
The guest today, Seth, is an absolute unicorn in the space. He's the only solution available. So strap in and be prepared for a ride because our friend Rael sitting in the back room. There he is. Rael, welcome to the show. Welcome, Rael Cline of Nozzle. Seth, go ahead and introduce him. This guy's going to blow your mind. So be prepared.
Yeah, welcome, Rael. Rael is the founder of Nozzle.ai, which is, Sean, as you know, the only solution in the space that actually will calculate the LTV or the lifetime value of your Amazon customer. And we're going to talk about why that's so important and why that's going to make you a lot more money today. This is something that Sean and I literally work on every single day, is increasing lifetime value of customers, because that's our business. Post-Purchase Pro is designed to increase LTV, and Nozzle, what Rael has created here, actually tracks that and can show you where you're making money and where you're not. And it's really, really great to have you today, Rael.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm super excited to chat about it all.
Yeah,
Amazing.
welcome to the show, Rael. We've been looking forward to it for a long time. Seth has a slew of questions prepared for you. We're going to try to keep this less than 20 minutes, but as you know, my friend, we're going to bring you back for a long form webinar to our entire audience.
You're gonna have to cut me off as well. I can talk about this for ages. So yeah.
Okay, I can relate. So Seth.
Yeah, Rael. So let's start at the beginning here. What was the the big problem that you saw and you said, okay, I need to do something about this? Why did you create Nozzle? What is it? What what impact are you having out there?
Yeah, I mean, why did we create Nozzle? I mean, fundamentally, if you think about running, selling products online, physical products online via and some sort of e-commerce store, the starting point for me has always been about your customers, right? Like, who are they? What are they doing? How do what behavior are they exhibiting? What are they buying? How often they're buying? And this is one area on Amazon where it's a complete black box. You have no idea. If you're used to selling on other channels like D2C, any sort of D2C, this is kind of a well understood and to an extent well solved problem. You have visibility into these things, and without understanding your customers, it's very difficult to build a brand. Ultimately, they are by far your most important asset that you have in a business, right? Like, that kind of obviously will make or break it. And so we set out to change that. We set out, to sort of shine a light on who your customers are, what their buying behaviors are on Amazon specifically, so that you can build a brand and ultimately build a bigger and more profitable business.
Nice. So, Rael, as you know, Seth and I are huge advocates of creating this asset, if you will, of our customers, because it's really not about the product we sell. It's about the person that we serve on the other end of that product.
Totally.
So I know that when we came across your particular solution, Seth was stoked about that. He said, Sean, do you realize that this is literally the only solution available for Amazon sellers that can calculate lifetime value, which, unfortunately, Rael, a lot of Amazon sellers are first-time entrepreneurs and are not really thinking about relationship building and lifetime value. So the fact that your software can track this is an absolute game changer. I know I don't have to tell you that, but Seth, I know that this is one thing that you definitely wanted to point out.
Yeah.
If you think about this, Rael, if I go spend money on PPC sponsored ads on Amazon to acquire a new customer, create a transaction, how can I know what the real ROI is on that? My A costs are through the roof, right?
Yeah.
And I don't really know if I'm liquidating the ad cost because I can't tell you what the lifetime value of a customer is. And I know this is something that's, like Seth says, is very near and dear to him. Seth, what does this mean for you?
Right. So, Rael, I think you and I have spoke about this several times, but it's like, if you spent $10 to acquire a customer on Amazon using sponsored ads, and then you thought that that was the only money that you were ever going to make, well, you would make a much different decision than if you knew that if you spent that same $10 to acquire a customer, if they bought from you 27 different times, like you don't know that.
Absolutely.
And so that's what gets me so amped up about what you're doing, Rael. So let's back up a little bit because, like Sean said, most Amazon entrepreneurs are first-time business owners, and they haven't been exposed to a lot of these concepts that are outside of the norm for Amazon sellers. So tell us what LTV is, tell us why it's important, and how that impacts running an Amazon business.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in sort of plain English terms, for me, it's really important if you sell a product that you think lends itself to repeat orders, and it does not, and I just really want to stress this, it does not have to be the same product. It could be, hand cream going to face cream, just anything else from your brand. So when we talk about a repeat customer, it does not have to be the exact same product over and over, although that's also fine. But when we think about in plain English terms, the fundamental business equation is, on the one hand, how profitable is a customer or an average customer, and how much do I have to pay to acquire an average customer, right? Like, that is the fundamental business equation here. And if it costs me more to acquire someone than they're actually worth to me in true profit terms, I'm not going to last very long, right? I'm going to go out of business pretty soon. But on the other hand, if an average customer is worth 3 times or twice as much as I'm paying to acquire a customer, well, that's a rocket ship, right? And that's a completely different business story. And so that, just understanding and approaching your Amazon business with that sort of mindset is really the key thing. And we can go into, the calculations and all those sorts of things, but like, that's just the sort of plain English version. And when people shift to that sort of mindset, it could be completely game changing, right? And this idea of, I mean, Amazon's, partially to blame for incentivizing people to just focus on that first purchase. Number one, the data is really hard to make sense of what happens after that first purchase. Number two, they've popularized ACOS, which is specifically focused on that first purchase as well. So, it's certainly not the sort of seller's fault or problem that it's sort of been created like this. But really, there's an opportunity here to really break free from this mindset, which is, in our view, clearly, holding a lot of businesses back.
Oh, thank you for the clarification. So, Rael, Seth, and I both come from a long line of studying the old school, if you will, the marketers with the most gray hair, those direct response gurus like Dan Kennedy and Gary Halbert and the like. And so we've always been huge proponents of creating that relationship and being able to spend the maximum amount upfront to acquire a new customer. In fact, a lot of the old school guys who literally wrote the books, not just read them, right?
Yeah.
They say, he who can spend the most to acquire a new customer can win the game. But there's no way to know how much is possible to spend on the front end for a new customer unless you know the true value of the back end.
Yeah.
So,
and I think, Sean, there's one important point to add to that as well. I think it's one thing, being able to spend, I don't know, 2 or 3 times more than your competitors. You can spend $100, whatever it is, to acquire someone. The next big problem is, I can't wait 12 months to break even. I can't wait 2 years to break even, right? And so it's all very well you telling me, hey, did you know you can spend $200 to acquire a customer because eventually in 5 years you're going to break even? That's not helpful either, right? Like, very, very few sellers can afford to wait a long time to break even. And so, I think sort of a more nuanced approach to this would be, how much can I spend if I want to break even in 3 months, or on the second order, or on the third order, which is 6 months? Like, having a time-bound component to this is really, really important, because, as I said, it's just useless to say to somebody, you can spend a huge amount if you wait 3 years.
Yep. If you're patient, I guess anything's what's it called? Compostable or compostable? What is it when you bury something in the ground and it disappears?
Yeah,
It's
there you go. Compostable, yeah.
Yeah. Everything's biodegradable if you have a few million years. So eventually your customers and their offspring will support your business if you're patient enough for 100 years, right? So speaking of that, Rael, if you could give us a case study when you first started Nozzle.ai, a case study that really blew your mind how powerful your program really is.
Yeah, absolutely. So this case study was with a pet brand called Buddy and Lola. We actually won an Amazon Innovation Award for this last year, which was really, really nice validation of what we're doing and our approach here. But it really boils this back to kind of the same fundamental goals around, I want to grow sales or I want to grow profitability in some combination, right? And as I alluded to, like in the beginning, it's probably some ASINs, like your hero ASINs, you don't want to kind of tinker too much with them. So you just want to focus on the profitability element. And maybe you've got sort of mid-tier ASINs that, okay, I really want to, go for growth here. And so what we would do with them is to say, your 3-month lifetime value, and I'm making up the numbers. These are not the actual numbers. Your 3-month lifetime value was, for instance, $30. It's done on an actual profit basis. That means you can spend up to $30 acquiring a customer, right? If you're willing to break even in 3 months. And so that completely liberates you. That translates to like an ACOS of 100%, right? Which is unheard of. Try put that as a target to a lot of like marketing folks, and that, they'd just be scratching their heads there. And so it allowed us to expand the PPC strategy on sponsored products to go after much higher cost per click terms, right? Much higher volume terms, very relevant terms, but they're just super competitive and super expensive. But we've got the comfort in knowing that our math is right, that if we just wait 3 months, we can comfortably afford this and outspend a lot of competitors to do that. And so they were able to grow new to brand audiences, grow market share, and ultimately grow profitability as well. You just have to be a little bit patient on that side. But real big changes on climbing up organic rankings, the whole deal there. Then for the other ASINs, that's also about sort of more new to brand acquisition. So they had a very strong, let's say, subscribe and save base, and you want to be sort of getting more people into the subscribe and saves, and so that's just figuring out, how do I do new to brand acquisition on Amazon via the PPC, and it's a similar strategy of looking for non-branded search terms that you think that are very relevant and that you can rank for, but knowing that you can afford them, right? Even if they're very high CPCs. And so one of the key metrics there for us is always tracking what are the monthly or weekly new to brand numbers coming in, right? You just want to make sure that whatever you're doing on the ad side, that's kind of your North Star metric for let's say 3 months, getting as many new customers through the door. But crucially, you want to be tracking them. Just because I've got a whole bunch of new to brand customers doesn't mean that they're good quality customers, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they're all going to be buying again and placing second orders at the same rate as historical customers. And so you want to be tracking those as well. So those are the sort of tactics we used to grow the brand. And really, honestly, it resulted in really big increases in kind of all the key metrics. So for them, the 3 big ones were around growing sales, growing market share, and profitability for certain ASINs, right? So it's slightly different tactics for them, but we're able to check all 3 of those boxes purely using the LTV data and then translating that back to the PPC strategy and tactics.
Brilliant. So real quick, I have on the screen, for those of you who can zoom in, what Mr. Patel, founder of Cabinet, one of your customers, says.
Yeah.
Nozzle has allowed us to run Amazon PPC campaigns more aggressively, knowing that we can outspend competitors and gain market share whilst still being profitable. That's just super, super powerful.
Yeah, it's kind of the best of both worlds, right? Like you just wouldn't, you're not used to putting those words together in the same sentence, right?
Correct. Seth?
Yeah. So, Rael, a couple of things to point out as you're talking that come to mind is, number one, we run into this all the time where sellers believe if they don't sell a supplement or a cream, then they're probably not going to get repeat orders. And that's not true. We've sold everything from bed pillows to hula hoops, and we would generate repeat orders.
Yeah.
When we started looking at our data, Rail, we had customers that bought from us the same product 27 different times. And then you think that guy must be weird. He must own a hotel or something. And then you look at it, and another person bought 25 different pillows and 24 different pillows. And another customer bought 23 different pillows. And this is a bed pillow. It's like that you sleep on. Everybody needs one, right? Well, not really. So if you're thinking about your business and you think, well, LTV doesn't really apply to me, because why would somebody ever want to buy my product more than once? Well, number one, that's not true. And number two, like Rael was talking about, new to brand, meaning that could be like a gateway purchase. Like if you've purchased an iPhone, you might buy a Mac eventually, or you might buy AirPods, right? So it's new to brand. They would buy other things from you. And so you need to know that. And then the second,
I think just to sorry to interrupt there, Seth, but I think people they sort of conflate repeat orders with subscribe and save.
Yeah.
Right. And when people think of a repeat order, it kind of needs to be for the exact same ASIN over and over again. every 30 days, every 60 days. And it's just, whilst that's clearly the case for certain products and categories, absolutely. To your point, Seth, I mean, the majority of stuff is not subscribe and save and not like that and not the same ASIN over and over again.
Right. And so what I love about what you're doing with Nozzle is you'll be able to actually see product by product. What's the actual profitability of what's going on per product. I mean, you may think that just because your product is a topical consumable that people are coming back and buying, but unless you know to what degree they are, then you don't know how profitable you are, and you don't know what your marketing strategy should be. And then on the other side, you may be thinking that you're not making any money on a product and you're going to kill the product, but you're actually making money, and it's a great product to lead people to your brand.
Yeah, we've had exactly that, right? We've had exactly that case where they were thinking of basically killing the product, like the margin wasn't worth it. There was some challenges on the inventory side, whatever it is, but it ended up being such a great gateway product to a higher margin purchase, from the second and third order onwards, that they changed their minds, and it was absolutely the right decision.
So that's amazing, right? I mean, these are decisions that normal marketers get to make out there in the real world, but for some reason Amazon restricts that data and they don't present it in a way that we can make those decisions. So Nozzle, Rael, I know that you guys are doing something completely out of the ordinary for Amazon sellers. So let's dig into that a little bit more.
Sure.
Rael. So talk to me, what's the most exciting thing that you're seeing right now inside of Nozzle that is producing results for the sellers that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, I think before it's kind of one of the challenges we faced was this kind of education gap or implementation gap. Like, just people can get on board with like the theory of it, but how do I convince my partners or stakeholders that this is actually kind of a worthwhile thing? It's a very big strategic decision. It doesn't pay off immediately, right? You got to wait a couple months for the data to come through. So there's a bit of kind of leap of faith that's needed there, and so we've worked quite a lot to kind of bridge that gap around whether it's standard operating procedures, SOPs, or step by step on like how you would go about that PPC strategy I was talking about earlier around brand acquisition, or even just remarketing campaigns, like sort of bridging the gap between our data and then how to go execute on that. What has been super, super interesting is that the Amazon event 2 weeks ago, when they announced some changes to the customer engagement tool, so you can email people that have purchased from you before, part of that press announcement, Amazon actually mentioned lifetime value. That is the first time I've ever heard that, from, at least in a public setting, from anybody that at Amazon. And so, they're thinking about brand building. They're thinking about offering, more visibility, sort of what, or more tools, or what happens after that first purchase. They recognize the importance of this. So for me, it's kind of hitting a critical mass lately around people publicly talking about this in an Amazon context, right? Like, not just general e-com. I'm talking specifically Amazon, and hearing it from Amazon itself has helped us a hell of a lot, and helped our customers convince colleagues, I guess, as well, that this is not just some weird thing happening on the side here. Like, this is going to go mainstream, right?
Yep. So, Rael, thank you for clarifying that as well. We're having a lot of fun here. Got some good comments coming in, and
Cool.
as you can see, you have some of these folks that are bragging about you allowing to run PPC campaigns more aggressively, knowing that we can outspend competitors. That's amazing. But a lot of us out here, we're thinking that we're living in this vacuum in the Amazon FBA private label world, and we're like, yeah, but this doesn't apply to me. So if you would please address the issue of folks out there that are wondering, well, for my particular category, looking back at the data, Rael, what are the average amount of purchases, repeat purchases by an Amazon customer? If you would give some examples of categories.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of at like tier one or top end, obviously there's no surprises that things like supplements or pet products are going to be at the top there. And so the data that I've seen, on average, a customer buys 1.8 times. Now, when I say on average, that's accounting for all the folks that just buy once, right? So there's obviously going to be a chunk of people that just buy once, you never see them again, and that's life. But so many other people are buying so much more than once, like, I don't know, 3-4 times on average, that the average lands up being 1.8 times. And that's enormous. Like, what do you do with that number? Well, whatever you thought your break-even ACOS is, well, just times that by 1.8. Right, and that's your break-even ACOS. That's your new break-even ACOS, because on average, somebody buys 1.8 times from you. So those categories kind of are tier one, so supplements and pets. Things like food and drink and beauty are more kind of 1.5 range. But again, think about like the practical application about that. If I have a break-even ACOS and I'm times, it's 50% more, right? That's huge already, right? And there's definitely some categories where, when we started Nozzle, we knew 4 to 5 of the main categories to go after, like all the ones that I've mentioned here as well. But there've definitely been some surprises. I think sort of clothing, apparel, and to your point, bedding has definitely surprised me as well. And those are kind of 1.3. 1.4 sort of range. But the thing about that is, often the margins in those categories are a lot higher than they are in some of the supplements or whatever it may be. So even though the number's less, it's 1.3 instead of 1.8, 1.9, it's a material difference to your business, right? Even if it's just 1.3, because the margins are usually quite high. So I think those are just like good reference numbers for thinking about. Even for that, a 30% increase on your break-even ACOS, like off the bat, right? Like that's huge, right? In CPCs are increasing, it's becoming more competitive. To understand that you've got, that sort of headway is pretty massive.
So, Rael, since we're coming to the end of this episode, and I can't wait to pick your brain and dive a little deeper into what you're doing over there, because as you know, it's an absolute game changer. Couple of questions we like to ask. Number one, what is your all-time favorite business book that you've read?
Oh, that's interesting. So the business book side, there's one where I think thinking in systems. Now, this is probably applicable to outside of business as well, but it's an amazing book to think about. Any problem solving in terms of inputs and outputs, and what are the variables that can affect that. It's probably about 20-30 years old. I forget who the author is, but I've got this in hard copy. I get whoever joins Nozzle to kind of read this book.
What's the title?
I think it's called Thinking in Systems. I can probably give me a sec. I like it so much that it's always to hand, right? There you go. I don't think you can see that. It's probably blurred, but there you go. Thinking in Systems.
Love it.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
That is that for me is like, for a book that to actually change how you think takes quite a lot. And I think that's had a massive influence on how I prioritize doing things and choosing which problems to solve or how to solve them. As I said, applicability, I guess, outside of business as well, but absolutely within business. And I built a company off sort of the DNA of this book.
That's amazing. So, Rael, we ask another fun question here at the end of every show. So, what's something that you purchased that for you thought it was a splurge purchase, but you did not regret spending the money because you enjoy it?
That is another good question. I've probably overinvested in some of the sort of AC equipment here. I mean, I've got sort of mics and green screens and all sorts of things, and I don't even have a podcast or anything like that. But when it does come to situations like this, I like to I like to sound good and have good equipment and all that. So complete overkill for, I guess, how often I'm using it, or like I have no podcast ambitions or anything like that. But I love it. I think it's no regrets there either.
I love it, Rael. So I really, really enjoyed having you on today. Like Sean mentioned at the beginning of the show, we're going to host you on a full-blown webinar where you're going to be able to walk through and show a screen share, really show what this is looking like, because this is really important. I mean, the other day, Rael, our entire business is built around increasing how valuable a customer is. And what you're doing is showing that even if you're not doing anything to increase the value of that customer relationship, it's still really valuable. And so,
what I find so interesting about it is, so many of the numbers that I've been quoting, somebody just buys 1.8 times or whatever in supplements. I mean, that's just like an organic number. That's without even trying.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, because people don't know about this. People don't know what strategies and how to do remarketing or how to do inserts or, all this sort of things to get people to buy again. These are baseline numbers. These numbers can only improve, right? And so I think, there's just tremendous opportunity with that.
Well, Rael, we had a client call in the other day and they said we wouldn't believe it if we couldn't see the data ourselves. Now they're in the fitness category. They do not sell consumables. They're not in your high tier products like supplements or pets. They sell fitness products. These are products that most people would assume they would never buy again. And we started doing their email marketing. We generated $56,000 the very first month in additional sales that will show up in LTV.
I love that.
And it's a non-consumable product. This is how powerful what Rael's talking about.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm continually surprised by are, outside of the usual suspects of consumables and whatever, how you're actually able to move the LTV needle by getting people to buy related products, whatever it is from the brand. Like, there's just categories that I see come through the Nozzle sort of system that I'm just like, wow. Incredible sort of retention numbers or whatever it is. I would never have thought so. So just do not disqualify yourself by default, by thinking people don't buy from you again.
Rael, I would highly, highly recommend for everyone to go and sign up for a free trial so you can see what this is looking like, see how your brand is stacking up against, the categories that you're in. And then you can get an idea of, how many repeat orders am I getting? How many orders am I getting in brand after a new to brand customer, comes and buys my product for the first time? You can join a free 14-day trial at Nozzle.ai. It's not .com, it's .ai. Sign up just to take a look at what this is. And then when you start understanding the data, you can say, okay, well, if every customer buys from me 1.8 times, well, how could I get that to be 2.8 and 3.8? And that's what we really work on every single day, Rael. I really love what you're doing. I appreciate you coming on today. Any final parting words today, Rael?
No, not really. Just maybe, I'm sure there's sort of a ton of questions around these things. Email me, LinkedIn, whatever it is. As I said, I can chat about this all day. So whatever questions you have, please ping me. Always happy to answer.
Rael, it's been a pleasure having you on. Can't wait to do it again. Go out there, grab your free 14-day trial right now at Nozzle.ai. Tell them that Sean and Seth sent you from the Post-Purchase Podcast, and show Rael some more love that he deserves for changing the industry.
I see everybody who signs up, so you can message me directly, no problem.
All right, good deal. So thanks a lot for joining us on the episode. Don't go anywhere. This has been an episode of the Post-Purchase Podcast, episode 71. We'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, Rael.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been great.